Welcome to Oilers Live. I've got as my guests tonight for the prospect episode, I've got Sean from the oilnight.ca and Kelly from beerleagueheroes.com. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent. So thanks for joining me tonight, guys. I know we've kind of been planning this for a couple weeks. I'm pretty excited, and I've been looking forward to it. In all of that time that I've been doing the podcasting now, which actually hasn't been that long. It's been great back and forth on Twitter and just being engaged with fans and having new people on, but right from the start, I've been talking to you two, and that's been great. So I've been looking forward to to doing the prospects and talking about who we see, more who you guys see are going to be the top 10 in the upcoming draft. So to start, I just want to maybe give the people that are listening today a little background on who you guys are. And maybe we can, who you are, how you come about picking your top 10, where you get your information from, etc. Maybe let's start with Sean from the oilnight.ca. So Sean, just maybe a little bit of background of one thing actually I'd like to start with is I know you're based in London. Maybe give me an idea of how you became an Oilers fan.
Well, again, thanks for having me. I first became an Oilers fan, I think, it's funny, I listened to an episode with you and Kelly there, one of your first episodes. You guys talked about how you were big Mario Lemieux fans and Penguins fans. I was actually a Lemieux fan as well, and big fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then one year there when they didn't make the playoffs, the Oilers went all the way to the Cup, and I remember people saying that the Oilers would never win another Stanley Cup without Gretzky, and my dad was really cheering for the Oilers back then, and I don't know, I just kind of fell in love with them during that playoffs. And Craig Simpson is from London, Ontario, and I remember my dad taking us there a long time ago to the old ice house, and I got an autograph of Craig Simpson when I was a kid, probably 9 or 10, and that meant the world to me. So I was kind of cheering for them, and with Messier and Ranford and them, they went all the way and won the Cup. I was blown away. So they kind of became my co-favorite team along with Lemieux and the Penguins. And then as time went on, I just kind of cheered for Lemieux. That was it. But the Oilers, I always loved their hard work and determination. So that's kind of where it all started.
So in one of the things, I mean, if anybody goes to your blog, one of the things that they notice right away, of course, is a lot of OHL talk and Oilers prospects and even just prospects, good players in the OHL today. How'd that happen? How'd you come about that?
Well, we've always been following the OHL ever since I was, 13, 14. I remember, again, my dad used to always take us, and he's been a big influence for me as far as hockey goes. We've always kind of been, focused on junior hockey. It's such an exciting league, and, lots of friends and, some family members that have played in the league before. So as far as my blog goes, I was kind of tapped into the Edmonton market there for a couple of years, and I kind of noticed that there wasn't a lot of talk as far as Oilers prospects go. There's not a lot of, there's Bakersfield and that, but there wasn't a lot of talk about the OHL really. And I figured I could kind of bring that to that market and, shed some light on some of, some information that maybe some fans didn't really have access to. So it kind of gave me an opportunity to talk about what I enjoy, my passion, the OHL, but also tie it into the Edmonton organization. So it's been up for about a year or so, and I've got a lot of positive feedback, and I really enjoy talking about the two.
Yeah, I can, just people talking to me, on Twitter or otherwise, and a lot of people love to hear what you have to say, especially about the OHL, and you've certainly got a good eye for it. How long have you been doing that? I mean, looking and watching, OHL players. Well,
it's probably when I was about 18 or 19. We've got a couple of scouts in our family. Don Luce is a cousin of my dad's, and Mike Bolin used to play in the NHL. He's also another cousin. But I got to meet Don there a long time ago, and just listening to him talking about how he scouts and what he looks for and all that, it kind of drove me. And I never pursued it professionally, but it's something I always was interested in. It was always in the back of my mind. So I would say probably when I was about 18 or 19, I kind of started getting into it. And then, like I said, I put the website up about a year ago. And yeah, I mean, we're so fortunate here in London. It's such a great city. I posted on my website there. We've got there's 12 OHL teams within 3 hours of here, and there's 3 NHL cities within 3 hours of here. So we're kind of in a hockey hotbed. So it's really all around us, and London always draws the most. They have the best attendance every year in the CHL, and it's such a dynasty with the Hunters running it. It's contagious, really. This city loves hockey, and for me, it's 18, 19. You just kind of get caught up in that, and I've been following it ever since. So I do my best to try and focus on that league and promote it whenever I can.
Yeah, I probably one of the first things I remember about talking to you was Maximov, and you were talking about just going before the game and watching him after the game, just getting a feel for what kind of work ethic he had. Is that pretty typical of you to go early, watch a game, and stay a little bit later to see what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And we tried to stay after the game, and they were late getting into Niagara's late getting into London that night. They got stuck on the 401. We were hoping to get an autograph or something because I brought my son to the game, and we taped Maxim off on the back of the jersey, on an Oilers jersey, and hoping he would come out. But I guess he went right to the bus after the game. But maybe we'll go to Niagara and catch him next time. But yeah, I mean, I've got another son too. That's he's 3, turning 4. And he's already shooting the puck, shooting the ball. He's right into hockey. So, ultimately, I think I'm going to kind of be a coach all the way through, and hopefully he makes it to junior hockey. We kind of go from there. So, it's just something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, and it comes out. It comes out in everything that I've read that you've put out there, and like I said, I've really enjoyed it. We're going to be talking prospects today and the upcoming draft. And Kelly, I'll ask you as well. But one of the things I want to know is, are there any, outside of what you've been able to see in the OHL today, when you're putting your top 10 out there, what are some of the sources you go to that other fans might go to that they don't know about today?
Well, I pretty much use Twitter for everything. I think probably the guy I go to the most is on Twitter. His handle is at the Draft Analyst, at Steve Cornianos, and I think he's fantastic. Just like any scout, or people like Kelly and myself are just fans that are kind of doing scouting. Everybody has their personal favorites, and they have certain biases, but I think Steve does a pretty good job of being fair and not being biased. And I really enjoy his breakdowns there. And then a couple other guys, Mark Seidel, who was a big guy. He was all over Maximoff last year. He was pumping his tires, saying this guy is a real sleeper. Watch out for him. He's at Mark Seidel, Seidel. He's another go-to guy for me for sure. And then Brock Otten is the OHL. He's kind of my bread and butter. If I ever need anything for the OHL, I kind of lean on him for that. But yeah, Steve and Mark for sure are definitely guys I lean on.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else you might want to add before we have a little chat with Kelly and then get into the prospect piece?
Well, not really. I mean, the main thing is here, the whole point of this, I think this podcast, now, Kelly and I mean, we're certainly not professional scouts. We don't pretend we're professional scouts. We're just like a lot of other fans. I mean, we enjoy the game. I certainly consider myself a junior hockey nerd, and just prospects in general. I watch as much video as I can, and I really like to kind of go over previous scouting reports, or previous years, and see where the scouts got it wrong and make the necessary adjustments, things like that. I mean, we just like to have fun with it. Again, you kind of take it with a grain of salt. I'd like to think that, Kelly and I are both pretty good at, breaking down the film and, kind of relaying what we see. But again, we're not pros. We just do this for fun. So keep that in mind when we go through our top 10, in case we're not right bang on.
And when you're analyzing my podcast skills, keep that in mind too. I'm just doing this for fun. So,
Yeah, exactly.
Kelly, on to you. You and I've had you on now. This will be the third time, and thank you so much for that. You are located in Taiwan, which still strikes me as the oddest place to find a Oilers fan, and also shows up in my listening stats all the time. And I look at that when I go to see, has anybody actually listened to my podcast? And I see this listener from Taiwan, and I think I've gone international. So I think that's great. Kelly, we didn't talk before, but, we asked you about how you became an Oilers fan in a past episode. Tell me who you might go to. Who are some of the top resources for you when you're looking at prospects?
When I'm going to just to check out the rankings and kind of see who everyone has, I go to this website called mynhldraft.com. And there they have a mock-up, and it updates every month. And they aggregate all the rankings from nearly everyone, any one of the draft reporters out there. So that way I can get on the mock draft page, I can see the aggregated rankings and where the NHL teams are in the standings with regards to the draft. And there's another link where I can go and check out all the different rankings, right? And from there, I can go and read said, pundits, lists and reasons, so on and so forth, right? Other places I go, I got a subscription to The Athletic, so I started reading Pronman this year. Low Tide, usually he has some really good stuff up. He has a different way of looking at the rankings. He usually takes a skill as a higher priority. Sean said the Draft Analyst, that's a really rad one to go to. He's super in depth with what he does. You can always go to Mackenzie. Every year you get 3 or 4 nice reports from him on TSN. And Dauber's Prospects, and there's again in Peter Harling there that does some really nice work with the every month with his rankings. We used to go to Hockey's Future. It's not around anymore.
Oh no. So you know what? In the past, we've been on for only a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. I have not. I've not heard of the Draft Analyst, and I've not gone to my NHL Draft before. .com, and there was one other guy there. You said Sean, Mark. Was it Mark?
Mark Seinell, yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't following him. So, one of my favorite things about doing the podcast so far is, and I know you guys listen, but for those that haven't listened to some of the other guys that I've got from around the league, I always ask them who their sources are, like who do they like to go to, and my knowledge of the game in just 3 to 4 weeks has increased exponentially just by knowing where to go for resources and everything. One of my favorites and Kelly, you put me onto that site was rosterresource.com. And that's become one of my, just sort of go-tos for age and lineups and injuries and et cetera. Some really great sources and some things just for anybody who's listening that if you're like us and you're just a fan and you want to know a little bit more about what's going on, feel free to reach out to myself or Sean or Kelly. I think each of us would be happy to, say, hey, this is where I got this information from. And it just, if you're into it, it's fun. Right. And, I think the three of us at least are big Oilers fans and love finding out all the little extras, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, if I could just toss one more, and there's a podcast called the Pipeline Show, and that's right out of Edmonton, and that's been around for quite a while. It used to be on TSN, but now they've gone more private, so it's simply a podcast that goes up. every month, every week. I'm not quite sure the frequency, but that one's really popular. They always have hockey prospects on the pod in the interview and scouts every time, so you can get lots of good information if you're one of those folk that learns a lot from listening, or you don't have enough time to do reading or watching. Then get in your car and toss the Pipeline Show on.
Now that I do follow the Pipeline Show. I've not listened to the podcast, but if you go, I'm just looking at their Twitter account. If you go there, it's thepipelineshow.com, and definitely I'll have a. The fellow that hosts it is also the color analyst for the Oil Kings, so that's quite cool.
Yeah, it's a rad show.
Yeah. Oh, right on. All right. So, guys, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the game last night, but we're on here. It's an Oilers show. And to be honest, I'd just rather put that game behind me. But let's take 10 seconds each or whatever it takes and get your thoughts. And I assume each of you watched it. I'm not 100% sure. I can tell you. Maybe I'll start. I watched the game, and you guys can respond to what my analysis is on it. Sometimes I can be definitely accused of being a homer pretty much all the time. And but I can. So I watch a game like that last night, and we came out pretty flat, I thought. The Oilers did. And again, first shot, first goal, absolutely, my head's in the palm of my hands, and I'm just feeling it for these guys. Like, how is that even possible that they can keep going through that? And I thought, it's going to be back to the 5-0, whether it's the Sabres, the Kings, or whoever, right? Another 5-0 game. So I had that feeling after the first period. Of course, they came out, the second and dominated for some time, and it looked like McDavid was back to putting on the Jets and maybe could, do another 4-goal performance. And then, of course, the tires blew out, and the goal, which was challenged and called a good goal, happened, make it 3-2. And that kind of a game, right? 2 empty netters. It's really a 3-2 game. I looked at that game and I thought, and I was pissed off, that we lost another challenge. And people have been bandying about this 16 challenges in a row, and that really pisses me off too. And all these things get me really sort of cranked up and just mad. And then I got thinking, like, most of us, I think Kelly, you play. Yeah, I know you play hockey, and Sean, I know you play hockey. We all play hockey. We've all played on organized teams, and I think about my coach in the room after and talking to me, and if we had just started strong, then that goal wouldn't have mattered. That challenge, whether it went for us or against us. And so here I was getting pissed off at the refs and the NHL officials for another game that they cost us. And I neglect to think that, if we could have just made that first initial save, we might have been in that game and we might have won it. But we're not doing that. And that's night after night. You can't, go down 2-0 and hope to win the game. So anyway, that's my thought on the game. I mean, at first, the homer in me was just pissed off at the NHL and sick of watching. But when I got down to really thinking about it, this team has got to do something about their starts. And so that's my opinion. Maybe Sean, what's your thoughts on the game last night?
Well, I'll be brief. I'm not happy with Todd McClellan at all. I'm not going to go into it really too much. I mean, with Hopkins out, you're already down one center. Why you're taking your other center and putting him at right wing is beyond me, especially when they're putting Doughty out to check the top line. I mean, that's just ridiculous coaching in my mind. But the bottom line is Talbot lets in the first goal of the first period, lets in the second goal, or the first shot of the first period and the first shot of the second period. What are you supposed to do? Like, that's a kick in the junk each period. And you got Doughty out against the top line. I know they scored the power play. I think they scored 1 5-on-5. But I mean, what do you expect? I mean, Kara's a good player, but what do you expect him to do? Number 2 center. It's too early for that. Draisaitl should be the number 2 center. At least have 2 dangerous lines. And like, you expect Lucic to do anything playing with Kara. I mean, he's trying to play back instead of, forechecking, doing what he's supposed to do. I mean, it's just, the whole lineup is a mess, in my opinion. And again, I blame the coaching. But I mean, Talbot isn't helping himself. He's the one that guaranteed that they're going to be better. And when you let in the first shot in the first period and the first shot in the second period, it tells me it's just lip service. But I take it as a positive because that means we're going to get a better draft pick and go from there. That's it.
and we'll talk about that at the second part of the show here. Kelly, your thoughts on the game last night?
Like the first period was a bit of a letdown. Like Sean said, Talbot has to be way better than that, and he is a better goaltender because we've seen it. But I didn't feel quite as down because I know that McDavid, if anyone on the team can pull the Oilers back even, at least, and more or less that's kind of what he did. Draisaitl, he's starting to heat up on the power play, which is that's nice to see. The second period was a little more surprising for me with how they handled the Kings so well. But the kind of where it hinged on was that one shift where they hit the post 3 times.
Oh yeah,
in like 2 seconds. And then when that happened, I figured, well, like if you can't put the puck in a wide open net like that, then it's probably not your day, and it's kind of probably not their season. So, not to get too down on it, and try to find some positives at the end of the game. I didn't like the penalty that Puljujärvi took, but not because he took it, but because they called it. I thought it was a bit tacky. I didn't think he intentionally interfered with that King, but he absolutely rolled him in the corner. So it's hard not to hard not to see that, right? They had the pressure. I'm not a fan of what McClellan's doing this year either. He's being too stubborn with his lines, and I think it's going to cost him his job. I think him and McClellan are on 2 completely different pages, or him and Chiarelli, sorry. And it'll cost him, and then Chiarelli will just put someone in there that'll do what he wants. Because like Chiarelli didn't hire McClellan; that was Nicholson's hire. And now we're seeing what happens when a GM doesn't get to hire his own coach. Yeah.
You know what? I never thought about that, but you could be right there. I know. I think the 3 of us know there is certainly a drive to get Chiarelli replaced, and I've felt the whole time that there's not enough eyes on McClellan. Although I think people realize he needs to do something different, but there certainly hasn't been enough eyes there as part of or major part of the problem. I think we all agree on that. So that's we'll now happily put that game behind us, and we won't talk of it ever again, at least not on the Oilers Live podcast. We can get into some NHL draft. Oh, I do want to say one thing. I played some lunch hockey today, and Kelly, you kind of hurt my feelings there because you said if you can't, you're hitting a post on an empty net or whatever. I actually hit the post twice. I had 2 glaringly open nets and hit the post today. It clearly wasn't my day, but
were you right in front of the net like Lucic was, or were you off to the side with a bit of an angle?
Oh, it was ugly. It was
You're
ugly.
Not getting paid $6 million a year, though.
Yeah. No, that very so true. And but I think I've retired that hockey stick because
Run on a stick, man.
Yeah, it was clearly the stick's fault, not mine.
Wrong player.
All right, guys. Let's get into some draft talk and talk about the top 10. How we're going to do it today is we're going to alternate, starting with Kelly and then go with Sean. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then the two of you each have a little bit different take on who you might pick 6 through 10. So we're going to actually do 2 episodes tonight in 2 parts, and we'll do 6 through 10 on the second episode, and hopefully everybody listens to both. Just chat about, each one in the top 5 and what you've seen or what you've heard. And we'll have a quick chat about each. And then maybe at the end we can talk about where the Oilers are looking to draft and who we think they might take. I think right now we were talking about earlier before we started recording that the Oilers are looking at about a 7th pick today. So let's go with number 7 as being the Oilers pick tonight, if you guys are good with that. And when we get to pick 7, we can maybe chat a little bit about who you would take. Who you think is 7th, and if you'd take them at 7 for the Oilers.
Yep.
How's that sound?
Great.
All right, guys. So let's get right into it. Kelly, you've got probably the easiest one to start with. Who's at number 1 in our top 10 for Oilers Live podcast?
Brady Tkachuk. No, I'm just kidding. It's not Brady Tkachuk.
That might be my number 1, but yeah, go ahead. Who's number 1?
It's the almighty Rasmus Dahlin. If you don't know about this kid, you're living under a rock. I mean, he's got the size of, he's nearly the same size as Pronger. He's strong as a bull. He hits like a semi truck if he catches you. He's got Karlsson's finesse and skating. He's got Lidstrom's poise and IQ. He's the generational defenseman, maybe the first one since maybe Ekblad that we've seen. He's a player that can turn your franchise around, right? When I watched him at the gold medal game in the World Juniors, I was surprised with how cool he was on the ice, and he played both sides too, and without fault.
Do you think Dahlin is a definite for being in the NHL next year?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He absolutely will be in the NHL next year. Depending on what team drafts him, whether he'll be a first pairing or second pairing defenseman too. I think it'd be a shame if he went to a team that didn't have like half decent defenseman on it, and he was relied upon to kind of carry the team by himself, right? Hedman had a tough go when he started too. With Tampa, it took him a few years to really find his stride, but now he's been a Norris, up for, at least considered for the Norris Trophy the last 3 seasons. So this guy's got it going on, and he's the defensive McDavid or the defensive Matthews. So it's going to be interesting to see how he projects into the NHL. I don't know if the coaches will let him, be as flashy as we see the highlights of him from the SHL, right? So I'm interested to see how he's utilized like that.
Yeah. And you've watched any clips of him, it's just, it's unreal. The guy moves so smoothly and is just such a force out there. It's really exciting. And you know what? If you're a fan of the game, you are going to love this kid when he makes it into the NHL. Number 2, we'll move over to Sean.
Okay, so number 2, I've got Andrei Svechnikov of the Barrie Colts. This kid is, as far as I'm concerned, he is the next Evgeny Malkin. He is 6'3", 184 pounds. Malkin's 6'3", 195 pounds. The thing I love about him, there's a lot of talk between him and Zadina, which one is the better player. Zadina is such a good goal scorer. But the thing with Svechnikov is he's such a great goal scorer too, but he can score in a variety of ways. He's such a powerful skater. He fights through checks. He drives hard to the net. I mean, his shot is just as good as Zadina, and he's a possession monster. He really is a beast. Like in the OHL, he's just dominating. He almost makes it look so easy. He's got, I think, he had 2 goals today. I think he's got 29 goals in 30 games. I saw somebody today tweeted out, Todd Cordell tweeted out today that there's a stat for even strength goals per 60. The leaders during their draft year since 2014. All you need to know is Connor McDavid is second with 2.03 goals per 60, and first is Svechnikov with 2.37. This guy can score at will. The thing I really like too, though, is he plays a really good 200-foot game. I mean, he's always coming back. He's not one of those guys that floats and cheats. He's responsible defensively, and he wins a ton of puck battles. And he's great at shielding off defenders too when he's going to that. So he really is the complete package. Talking to at the draft analyst there, we were kind of comparing Zadina and Svechnikov, and after talking to him, kind of concluded that Svechnikov can do what Zadina does. He can score from pretty much anywhere, but Zadina can't do what Svechnikov does. He can't drive hard to the net and fight off 2 defenders on his way. And again, his game reminds me so much of Malkin. I know Malkin's a center and Svechnikov's a right wing, but just such similar styles, the two, how they play, is just his skill set is going to translate well to the NHL. And the one thing I did kind of want to mention is a lot of times and I'm kind of guilty of this as well, there's a bit of a stigma around Russian players sometimes. If you look at Kucherov in his draft year, he dropped, I think he was 2nd or 3rd round because he was going to play in Russia for a couple of years. So they kind of dropped him. They knew he had all the talent in the world, but they dropped him because of the Russian factor, as they say. And I think if you go back over the years, there's so many Russians that are underachieving. Like, there's Yashin, Radulov, and Semin, all these guys that end up going back to Russia. But even draft busts, like 1st-round draft busts, you're looking at Nikita Filatov, and Grigorenko was a bust. Nikushkin didn't do anything in Dallas. He went back to Russia. Sometimes, and I know that some scouts kind of take that into consideration when they're drafting. They consider, okay, this is a Russian player. Is there any chance he's going to go back to Russia? Is he fully engaged in making the NHL and staying in the NHL? I think this kid Svechnikov, he's one of those guys. He's on another level. Like I said, just like Malkin, he's got it all. And the determination, the skill. Everybody's talking about Dahlin, how it'd be great if he was an Oiler. I think that's going to be unfair, really, if he becomes an Oiler. That's just, even if we win a cup or a few cups with them, it's like, come on, man, you guys got Dahlin, right? But I'm actually secretly rooting for Svechnikov. You look at Crosby, he's got his Malkin. You look at Stamkos, he's got his Kucherov, and I want to see McDavid have his Svechnikov. And I think it's the perfect complement to McDavid. So that's who I've got in there at number 2.
And, I asked about Dahlin too. You see Svechnikov playing in the NHL next year?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no point in him going back to the OHL. He's dominating. Now,
maybe I missed it. You have seen him live?
I have not seen him live. He was in London here last week, but I had prior engagements. But I'm hoping to go see him in Kitchener there in a week or so. But I record pretty much every Barrie game, and I try and break down the tape as much as I can. But yeah, this kid is just, he's unbelievable.
All right. Well, thanks, Sean. That you guys both know I'm a big Tkachuk fan, and have even said at one point I'd like to see him go up to number 2, if I was picking. But it's hard to miss those numbers on Svechnikov, and even, I think I'd probably be laughed out of the draft if I took Tkachuk at number 2. Anyway, now let's Kelly, number 3.
I've got Philip Zadina from Halifax at number 3. Sean touched on a bit in his Svechnikov piece there. He's so dangerous from the kill zone. I've nicknamed him Dexter. He scores from right between the dots almost nearly every time. He's just got one of those lightning fast releases that fools the goalies, right? And I think that's going to be really key as he becomes a pro. Now, we've been hearing about Zadina since he was 13 and 14 years old too, so he's not really that new to the scene. But what he's doing in the queue this year is ridiculous. He's tearing it a new one, to be honest. He had a great performance at the World Juniors. He had another great performance at the prospects game. He seems to shine when the pressure's high, right? I found something interesting about him. He's only 6 feet tall, but he's nearly 200 pounds. So he's real heavy down low. And I think I've heard some comparisons to Claude Giroux a little bit. And I read one today about Hischier, just a little bit, not quite Hischier's level, but close to that. So he's highly skilled, and if a team needs a scoring winger, he's a lefty. He might be someone that's worthy to pick up. So
I don't know if you guys have watched, but some people are actually taking Zadina at number 2. I'm sure right away, Sean, I mean, you're a bigger fan of the OHL, as being the best junior league, or even the best league in the world. You guys think that it's possible Zadina could go up to number 2?
I think, look, the Q has always been reputed to be a high scoring league, right? So we're not surprised when we see a high flying prospect start racking up the points coming out of the Q. I'd be more surprised seeing it coming out of the OHL. So that might hurt him, because the Q has always been an offense first league. So what do you think, Sean?
Yeah, and I think with Svechnikov, I think that the difference there really is, I mean, his defensive game is there. He's a sound 200-foot player, and just physical wise, I think he's a step above Zadina as far as like translatable NHL skills. We know Zadina will probably be able to score if he gets open, but Svechnikov can score in so many ways. I think, NFL or NHL scouts will look at it and say, you know what, we can kind of plug this guy in from day one. And even if he's not scoring, he can still contribute in other ways, whereas Zadina might be a little bit one-dimensional and he's just a pure sniper, right? So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you can agree with that.
All right, and let's move on to my favorite pick at number 4. Go, Sean.
Number 4, we got Ryan Merkley, I'm sorry, Brady. Your boy Brady Tkachuk. Really don't have to break down too much with Tkachuk, because we kind of already see it with his brother, and we've seen it with his dad. He's a typical Tkachuk. I think. If you compare him to his brother, he is faster. I think he's a little bit faster. I think he's a little bit more skilled. And believe it or not, a lot of people say he's even meaner than his brother, which probably would make you happy there, Mike. But yeah. I mean, he's definitely your prototypical power forward. I mean, he's a stocky guy. I think he's 6'1" or something. He's 200 pounds. He plays a nasty style. It's and he's got that blistering shot, right? I mean, if I compare him to somebody, it would be Keith Tkachuk, or probably Keith Tkachuk, anyways. But it's funny. Real quick, funny story. He was actually so the London Knights drafted Matthew Tkachuk, and he played in the U.S. and then he came to London and played for a bit, and then the Knights also drafted Brady Tkachuk. But Brady Tkachuk didn't come. He stayed in the U.S. And there was a lot of talk that Matthew didn't have the grades he wasn't as smart as his brother. He didn't have the grades. That's why he came to the Ontario Hockey League instead of playing in the US. Whether that's confirmed or not, I don't know. But that's what I hear. But yeah, it would have been nice if Brady would have played up here in the OHL for a year. He would have tore it up. But yeah, I think if you kind of compare to, he's not quite at the Svechnikov level, the Zadina level, where he's not quite the natural goal scorer, but he brings a lot with that toughness, that nastiness. And a lot of teams are going to value that, his size and that. So we've got him at number 4.
All right. And again, I've asked the question. I didn't ask the question on Zadina. Maybe I should have asked that, and we can go back to that just briefly. Kelly, you think Zadina's made for the NHL next year?
I think he will be. I think he's probably physically, he'll be all right. He can handle the workload. I don't know if he'll get the same production that maybe Tkachuk or Svechnikov will, though, just because they seem to be stronger players, stronger on the puck, and a little more versatile. If you notice this year, Zadina's got clipped a few times and missed a few games. So he gets caught and then he gets hit. So that doesn't bode well for him going into the pros. So he can make it, but I just don't think he'll put up major points right away.
Yeah. And right now it looks like Ottawa is sitting at number 3 if we're to pick today. So yeah, you know what? I could see a player like that needing to go down for a year. I agree with you on there. And the same question on Tkachuk. Sean, what's your thought? My thought on this. I think he's one of the definites to play in the NHL right away. But your thought?
Yeah, I didn't think his brother was going to play. I thought he was going to come back to London. A lot of people here did think he was going to come back to London. But he stuck around because of the chippiness, and he was able, again, if he's not scoring, he can contribute in other ways. So, I mean, if his brother made it, he's definitely going to make it. I think it doesn't really matter what team drafts him. He's physically ready to play in the league.
Yeah. All right. And we're going to end sort of the first half of this talking about number 5. I'm going to let you both kind of have your opinions on who we've got at number 5. Maybe start with Kelly.
Yeah, it's Adam Boqvist out of Sweden there. I guess he's, from what I can gather, he's the closest thing to Karlsson, Erik Karlsson, that we've seen in a while. But he's part of this new breed of smaller, puck-rushing defensemen. I think that this crackdown on open ice hitting and headshots has allowed the smaller skilled player more room to be more creative on the ice, and we're seeing that with guys like Boqvist and Hughes and Merkley and these smaller defenders coming through. He's not playing in the SHL this year, Boqvist. He's playing in the Allsvenskan, I believe, which is like the second division in Sweden, and he plays for a team called Almtuna. And he's, from what I can gather, he's doing a bit of all right down there. These kids don't tend to score a whole lot on defense in Europe, so he's only got 2 assists in 7 games. But I think that he's very dynamic, very smart. He's quick. He's got a heavy shot, but not really all that accurate, is what I've been told. He's about 5'11" and 170 pounds, so he could gain a little weight. But he's as dynamic as they come. Even in the past, being ranked up there at number 2 at one point, not far from Dali. So, if you want a high-end right-handed power play defenseman who can transition the puck through passing or puck rushing, then Boqvist might be your guy. He might take a little bit to get there, but he might be your man.
Definitely size will be probably his initial problem, but we're seeing a lot of smaller D in the league than we've ever seen. Your thoughts, Sean, on Buckfist at 5?
Yeah, so like Kelly mentioned, there is a lot of it's kind of a new breed of defenseman coming in. And I think if you compare him to Ty Smith and to Hughes and to Merkley and that, I think he's a little bit above and beyond that. And one thing I always kind of subscribe to as part of my amateur unofficial scouting is I don't really buy into numbers so much. Production a lot of times can be very misleading. We just look at guys like Ryan Strome, for example, who lit up the OHL, and then, they kind of struggle in the NHL. So I don't really buy into the numbers as much as I look for the translatable NHL skills. So if a guy's got the speed, if he's got the skill, if he's got the hockey IQ, that's kind of what we look for. And Boqvist appears to have all that. A lot of people kind of call him, he's kind of the Dahlin light. He's a smaller version of Rasmus. I mean, he's got the offensive flair for sure. I mean, he can make guys just look silly. I think I tweeted out a video there not too long ago of highlight reel of him, and he looks a lot like Dahlin. But like you said, he is kind of a smaller guy, and defensively, he's probably not there yet. Physical wise, he's probably not there yet. And every year, there's always at least one guy in the top 10 that kind of gets higher than, or drafted higher than he should be, or ends up turning up to be a bust. I think Boqvist is probably that potential bust candidate. I mean, he's just because of that, the defense and the physical side, so, I mean, time will tell on that, but just from a pure skill set point of view, he deserves to be the 5th ranked player, in my opinion.
Yeah. And guys, and either of you can jump in, but do either of you see him playing in the NHL next year?
I don't at all. I think he'll be in Sweden for another 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think he will be either. Probably similar to that Timothy Liljegren.
Yeah, maybe like that in the AHL.
Yeah, something like that. I don't think he's ready for the OHL yet, or for the NHL yet.
All right, guys. You know what? That's the top 5 for our prospect episode tonight. Quickly, if you were to say out of those 5, or even out of your top 10, who might sneak up and gain a spot? Or I think everybody, you'd be crazy to say somebody's going to go over Dahlin, at least at this point today. But who might sneak into a number 2 if if the draft happened today? Let's start with Sean this time. Let's start.
I don't think anybody's going to go to number 2. I think Svechnikov's number 2 for sure. But I will say, if I had to choose between Brady Tkachuk and Filip Zadina, I understand why Zadina is number 3. I get it because he's the pure goal scorer. But I would, if it was up to me personally, if it was the Oilers drafting, I would take Tkachuk over Zadina, just because I know for sure he's going to be an NHLer. I don't know how good he's going to be. But he's going to be an NHLer. Whereas Zadina, I mean, you assume he's going to score lots of goals, but you never know. And Tkachuk's are pretty much a sure thing in the NHL, it seems like. So I don't see anybody getting to number 2, but I could see Tkachuk jumping for Zadina for number 3.
All right. Kelly?
I agree with everything Sean says. I think the top 5 is set in stone pretty much. Apart from Zadina and
well, you'll recall that I was hoping you two would disagree.
Yeah. Zadina, it's one of those things with the pure offensive players. There's a higher chance that they might not translate to the NHL. The one thing with Tkachuk is I'm afraid that he could run into Brett Lindros syndrome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I have with Brady Tkachuk. I think he might be a little more clever than Matty. I think he'll be able to pick his spots a little better just from watching his older brother be an idiot.
Yeah. At one of my games that I was playing the other day, and I live in Calgary, so a lot of Flames fans here. I was surprised at 2 guys on the team I was playing on that were not Matthew Tkachuk fans, and they were Flames fans. So odd odd as that is, but some people don't like that style of play. I love it when they're playing on my team. I hate it, and hate Matthew Tkachuk, and can't stand the guy. And but as soon as we could make a trade for him, I'm all for it. All right, guys, you know what? That's the top 5. We are going to take a break right now, finish off this quick episode, and then we're going to have you back and do each of you. We're going to get your 6 through 10 who you think is going to go, and we'll talk as if the Oilers were picking at number 7 in the second part of this. Thank you for doing the top 5.
Live.